Good evening, everybody. This is Darius Assemi. Happy Veterans Day, and welcome to another great episode of Unfiltered. We have several special guests on our program this evening. I'm going to start with California Assembly Member David Tangipa, coming to us live from Washington, D.C., the White House. I'm kidding. No, but he has to drop off early because there's a special assembly vote or a meeting in about 30 minutes. Lonnie Johnson, Democratic Party Rep, District 5, and PAC Chair, Fresno, Madera Counties, California Teachers Association, and five other things that I'm not going to read because they'll take too long. Patience Milrod, who is a local attorney and citizen activist, may be joining us later tonight. Leon Orndorff, veteran United States Marine Corps, retired armor gunsmith, owner of Duck and Cover Tactical, incredible teacher on how to shoot straight and hit your target appropriately. And of course, Mike Rabasi and Bill McEwen, my co-host. Okay, let's dive right in. Let's see. Patience Milrod is not on yet, so we're gonna skip Seda for a minute. Big storm coming Thursday. Um, at least an inch of rain. That's last I saw. Headed our way Thursday, maybe into Friday, but it changes. So that's Paul Marshall gets credit for that beautiful image. Actually, could you put the first one up? It looks really awesome. Snow on the right in the Sierras, rainfall in the valley. Great job, Paul Marshall. That's a fantastic image. And then, of course, let's put slide 6 quickly. Rain again Thursday and potentially into Friday. Most of the rain coming on Thursday. It was an inch and a half, became an inch and a quarter. I don't know what the latest number is, and we don't know because it's the weather. Okay, I'm just going to dive right into because David has to leave here shortly. Mike, do you have anything, by the way, you want to share with us yet or no? Mike Carbasi, or you're on mute, Mike.
Next council meeting is going to be November 20th, so we have some time, and we'll have an update for you next week on what's happening on the council.
We really
We did, of
appreciate.
course,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
we did have a recap of the last meeting, a lot of heavy land use issues. One of them is VMT, which we'll talk about tonight. And unfortunately, two of us did vote against it. We did the right thing. The council majority wanted to push that thing through for some reason, and we'll talk about that tonight.
Okay, great. By the way, we really when the nights that you can't make it, we really appreciate your brief, up to speed, up to date updates. I'm hoping that Assembly Member Tangipa can do similar things from Sacramento. Give us a brief. It's a 2-minute pre-recorded. Whenever you have time, David, to give us an update on what the heck is going on in Sacramento. Okay. With that, we're going to dive right into. Let's put up some stats on Prop 50. California voters approved Prop 50. Let's put that stat up. And then Paul did a great job on slide 19 about all who voted for Prop 50. There it is. Californians, 65%, overwhelming majority of Californians supported Prop 50 in Fresno County. Gosh, barely 50%. So it was very evenly split in Fresno County. Just for comparison, what is it? In California, we had about roughly 11 million folks vote, and a 2024 presidential turnout was about almost 16 million. So about 5 million shy, but it looks like we got 2/3. That's a lot of folks turning out for a special election, single issue vote. Okay, let's bring in David. David, tell us what you got cooking on Prop 50. We hear that you're cooking something that people should know. And there's, of course, there's a poll we did, which we're going to put on the screen here shortly.
Yeah,
David?
well, I mean,
Okay.
obviously, I've been working on this Prop 50 campaign since the beginning. I'm actually one of the only members in the state of California who has seen this from its first initial inception to the elections committee, to the appropriations committee, to on the floor. And actually, I filed a lawsuit, and that lawsuit is against Governor Newsom and the individuals involved on Prop 50 for not following the Constitution. They've made arguments that they had to use race based redistricting to justify these maps. Well, if you do that, there is a very strict protocol that you must follow in order to actually use the VRA, the Voter Rights Act, and Section 2 of the VRA to do that. The individual who not wasn't told to us on the elections committee that drew the maps admitted that he drew 16 Latino majority districts. Well, if you look at the state of California, we see right now there is no majority ethnic group in the state of California. And we are also arguing that there is no racial barriers in the state of California that actually need a Voter Rights Act district. And so when they made the claim that they created 16 minority majority districts, which is a statement that doesn't make sense, and we have a ethnic plurality of Hispanics in the state of California, and as another justification, we look at my district. I now live in a congressional VRA district. I represent a non VRA district. Both the House falls in both a VRA and a non VRA district, and there was no justification. They did not give us the justification to the elections committee on time. They did not give us the justification in the appropriations committee, and they did not give us a justification on the floor. So this is about the entire process in itself. That I understand where the voters voted and how they felt, but that does not mean that it is constitutional in what was done. If you are going to use race as a justification for why you redistrict, you must follow the protocols in place. And because they rushed this process so fast, the governor and the legislative body, they have broke the Constitution, and we are challenging that process to throw out this sham.
Thank you for that, David, that explanation. I want to bring Lonnie Johnson on. What about the race, allegations that that David just made?
Well, I think it's really interesting that the Republicans were talking all during this campaign. Oh, people aren't going to be represented, and we're going to disenfranchise everybody. And as soon as the thing passes with 65%, 5 million voters, they now want to disenfranchise 5 million voters, 65% of the voting populace on Tuesday. It's foolish. October 23rd, and no less in the state of Texas, a very similar case was already thrown out due to lack of standing. And this case is going to be thrown out as well.
David, your response to Lonnie?
That has nothing to do with the process in itself. And if we go back to 2008 with Proposition 8 in itself, which was to constitutionalize traditional marriage in the state of California, that passed. The Supreme Court found that unconstitutional. So it's all about whether it was constitutional or not about how we feel. And that is something that we've got to look at this. In 4 days, the legislative body and the governor pushed through a bunch of bills and suspended the Constitution, gutted, amended the process, and then used race as a justification to the maps. It doesn't matter if the voters feel that racism should be okay, it's not legal. And that is the challenge where we are at. The entire process in the VRA. And here's another justification. Can they make the justification that we still need to race based redistrict in the state of California? I am Polynesian. I am the most minority in the state, and I represent the whitest district in the state. Under the jingles pretense and the set that was created, that created the legal framework in how you can use race as a justification, you have to show that white majority districts or districts that vote predominantly based off of their ethnic background is the only way they vote. There is no barrier here in the state of California, and I proved that as the first Polynesian ever elected to the state legislature in the whitest district in the state of California.
Thank you, David. I'm going to bring in Bill McEwen, but I got a couple of comments came in. Linda Carter says, since there was a big turnout for just one proposition, the people have spoken. I do not think this would have happened if the Trumpster had not interfered in Texas. It's a referendum against the Trumpster, plain and simple. Cam Malloy said, "Good for you, David. Prop 50 was ridiculous on so many levels. I'm certainly not a fan of Trump, but I didn't support Prop 50." Bill McEwen, and then we're going to go to Mike Rabasi.
So just very quickly, in other states where there are legal challenges being mounted to things the legislature have done, not the vote of the people, um, there are cases where Democrats are using the same arguments that David is using. So I think there is an interest in the court ruling on this in some capacity or another. If it's at the state level, of course, it's not going to apply to other states, but it'll provide a barometer on the future of this kind of gerrymandering, early on or constantly doing it.
Darius,
My-
can I jump in just real fast here
It's
because
going to be
it's
really
just
fast because you're getting
real
cutting in
fast.
front of Mike.
I mean,
Okay.
this all started because Abbott versus Perez in Texas, because the Republican legislature in Texas was drawing districts to lessen the impact of Hispanic votes. That's how this whole thing got started, and it's just rich now that the Republicans are like, oh, they're drawing this, to favor Hispanics. It's silly, and it's not going to pass. And thank you.
Okay, Mike.
I want to applaud Bill because he pronounced it gerrymandering. That's the actual way to do it. It's not Jerry Dyer mandering, none of that. So I do want to say though, this is the matter that's going to be decided by the courts. It's politics. It is what it is. The courts will decide, like Prop 8, like this issue. But I've heard some of our audience mention high turnout. What we're not talking about is what's happening right under our noses, and that's voter suppression here in Fresno County. 1/3 of our cities, incorporated cities in Fresno County, had not one in-person vote center, not one. That's unacceptable. So if you live in Orange Cove or you live in Parlier or Fowler, you have to drive miles away to cast your ballot. Now, yes, you can vote absentee. I personally believe the most secure way of voting is voting in person. And for even those in my district in Fresno that were voting, they were waiting in line. The number of texts I got from people saying, I can't wait any longer, I'm going home. This is what the mismanagement has done in our county. This is happening. Now, full disclosure, I'm paying attention to these things because I'm running to be the county clerk. So full disclosure there. But we talk about this issue. We need to talk about voter suppression here in Fresno County and how that's impacting the vote that took place. Who knows? It was so close.
I have a question, two questions actually. Who paid for this election? The taxpayers of California paid for this election, and if that's the case, please somebody address that. And number two, why did we not have vote in person in some of the cities? What did you say, Kerman and Mendota? What did you say, Mike?
No. So you've got Mendota ended up having one. We'll talk about how that happened. But the clerk's department decided it would Mendota, Fowler, Huron, Parlier, and Orange Cove would have no vote centers in person election day.
What is it, because of a cost issue? Because Fresno County didn't have the money, or what?
No, the claim was there wasn't enough time with the 75-day window to open up enough vote centers, and they are trying to save on costs. But here's the thing: it is your job to figure it out. You're supposed to create a trust fund, actually, to put money aside for special situations like this. I don't think that was ever done. There was never money set aside. And yeah, I get it. There's a worry of cost, but look, it doesn't matter if it's a special election or a general election or presidential election. Every person should have the option to vote in person. Every city should have one vote center, at the very least.
Okay. Lonnie, I'm sorry, David, go ahead, and then I'm going to bring Lonnie in. Okay.
There was $300 million that was allocated to the counties across California from the Appropriations Committee. So that money came from the state, but a lot of the money to actually implement this entire process, that has not been allocated. And realistically, like for me, I actually pray for a lot of our county elections clerk, the ones that were doing this work. They had less than a couple weeks to really get started to implement an entire statewide election. This process and the election process that we have in California is complete chaos, from vote centers to the way that we actually verify individuals on this. We've had a sheriff come out and actually claim that they have evidence that people in different countries have been voting and registering in our elections. It's completely a sham here. And this is where this entire joke and process in itself is so chaotic and so messy that there were a lot of people that were disenfranchised in this process.
Yeah, Lonnie, did you
Yeah,
have?
I
Go ahead, Lonnie.
real
Go ahead.
quick, you
Go.
so yeah, it cost $300 million, but like I've said before in this forum and others, Republicans didn't care in 2021 when they were spending $276 million of the public's money to run a recall against Galvin Newsom that they knew wasn't going to pass, but they ran it
What?
anyway.
Hang on one sec. You say that it's a Republican recall. That was 1 million people who did that, not through a party, but they signed that. That is you talking about the people who put that on the ballot. The Republican Party doesn't have any power in this state. But this is purely on the supermajority in Sacramento that did this through the legislative process. And then also, when we say that $300 million to give pay raises to firefighters is too expensive, but a partisan power grab is just good enough, and you can allocate that in 4 full days to get it entirely done, that's the people in charge, not
So I
the
just
people, and not the entire population. It wasn't a Republican recall. It was the people of California who recalled them. There were Democrats, Republicans, and independents that signed that. There's not a single Republican that voted yes on this process.
So I just want to be clear. You're saying the Republican Party, California Republican Party, had nothing to do with the recall of Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom in 2021. You expect us to believe that?
There were 1 million people who signed that. How many people in the legislators voted on this?
I understand. Who was the funding behind the signature gathering out front of our Targets and Walmarts? I guarantee you that it was based on the California Republican Party.
Well, you can look through all of it. There was a lot of people who played into it, but it's 100% funded. This entire thing was 100% funded through the supermajority in Sacramento. There is a fundamental difference between a ballot initiative and signature collections and running it through the legislative process, and it's disingenuous to say that there isn't.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Okay.
David is going to have to leave shortly. Mike Carbasi, and then I'm going to get to a few questions and comments on our feed.
Okay, maybe we can have one moment of bipartisanship here. David and Lonnie, let me ask you this question. Regardless of how much time there is or how we pay for it, would you think it's important that voters, regardless of how they vote, have the opportunity to vote absentee or in person? Can we agree on that at least?
To have the opportunity to vote? Of course, everybody should have the opportunity to vote.
Everybody should vote. We should do everything we can do to increase participation in our elections.
Yet in Fresno County,
safeguards.
yeah, absolutely, both access and safety. But in Fresno County, over the last 6 years, the percentage of people voting has actually gone down, and there's a reason for that. But we'll talk about that later.
Actually, well, hold on. Percentage of people voting in Fresno County has gone down as the population has gone up. Can you address that, Mike? Could you elaborate? What does that mean exactly?
So you look at the people that are able to vote and the people that actually end up voting. Now, we pushed with the Voter Choice Act. Half the counties have the Voter Choice Act. It's all about access for all, which is great. But what it has actually done is put a lot of our resources into opening vote centers early, tying up those resources, and there's less actual opportunities to vote and longer lines on election day. People want to vote in person on election day. The current clerk said to the media last November that it's been the highest change of people that vote absentee by mail to in person last November that he noticed. Yet we had less vote centers open this go around. What I'm trying to say is we need to make it possible for people to vote any way they want. The problem is we put all our eggs in this mail and ballot process, and people don't trust the system anymore on both sides of the aisle, especially older people that have the habit of voting in person. We're taking that away from them. I think that's one of the reasons why turnout is going down, because the lines are so long, people just can't wait hours to vote anymore. And it's not made up. It is literally hours. We had our monitors out there noticing that as well. People are waiting in line and they're taking off and going home because it's late, it's cold, they're tired,
Okay.
and they can't wait for hours. It's inconvenient.
Let me move on. By the way, I'm one of those folks that loves to vote in person. I think it's so cool. Growing up in Iran, we didn't get a chance to vote. So I mean, revolution happened after I left, and now, of course, there's voting now. Maybe it's rigged, but there is voting now in Iran.
But Darius, you're lucky
yeah.
you're in Fresno. Imagine if you lived in Fowler and you wanted to vote in person, there's no vote center, or you lived in Mendota, you have to drive all the way to Firebaugh, 15 minutes away. Now, had it not been for the mayor of Mendota and Supervisor Brian Pacheco, who actually volunteered his time to work at a polling place, they made it happen within 3 days. There is no excuse for any of these cities not to have one.
Okay,
it's just laziness.
Let me quickly go through. Thank you, Bill. Voter ID, Mike. I'm sorry, Cam Malloy. Mike, I really wish you would run for mayor. Mike, I really wish you would run for mayor. Cam Malloy. Linda Carter. I went across town from Northeast Fresno to the new city center at Dakota and Blackstone because my friend was working there at 3 p.m. there were only 455 votes, and there was not one single person in line. Ooh, and there was no one observing the polls. Linda Carter and I did not get my ballot in the mail. Ooh, been at the same address for 22 years. I did not get my ballot in the mail. That's crappy. Becky Wharton, I hope David Tangipa runs for mayor. Is a guy with common sense. Ooh, sorry, Becky Wharton. Sorry, I mean governor. She wants you to run for governor, David. Um, Linda Carter, Becky, why would he run for mayor of? Okay, he's in Sacra. Linda Carter, Becky does not have enough experience to run the state of California. Cam Malloy, David, I'm signing and collecting signatures for voter ID to send in. Thanks for sending that to me. Becky, turnout is low because most politicians, SUCK, the Eddie Freedom Democrats made it mail-in. Eddie Freedom, it rigged here too. Okay, Bill has a comment, and then
Yeah, I have a quick comment,
oh,
which Mike's discussion is incomplete because it doesn't note the struggles that whoever the clerk is has in getting adequate funding from the Board of Supervisors. In this case, we have the state sending money this way. County had to release it early because they need to get it going. The state will backfill, make good on their promise to pay. But I've covered many a Board of Supervisor meetings, and the supervisor's attitude is, this is what we can afford, that's it. And you've had clerks present budgets about actual hours, staffing, where they want to be, where they want to do, and the Board of Supervisors says, tough, we're not hearing it. So if you want to talk about voter suppression in Fresno County, you better look at the Fresno County Board of Supervisors.
okay, Mike.
Bill, but I would say this. I think there's a reason why not one supervisor has endorsed Mr. Coos. I think as an elected official, it is your job to be able to lobby and advocate and build relationships to do your job and make sure your department's funded. He has not done that. I also think the way he's managing the department, the way he's prioritizing resources is also part of the problem.
So I have a question from Mike and
But
for
that goes
Bill.
both ways.
So the Board of Supervisors, which I think aren't they majority Democrat, or
That's 3-2.
3-2, 3 Democrats,
Three
majority
Republicans. Republicans.
3 Republicans.
2 Democrats.
All right, 2 Democrats, 3 Republicans. They voted or did not vote to allocate enough dollars to get enough
Well,
resources.
in the case of Prop 50, they weren't expecting it. So when they allocated the budget, they didn't know this was going to happen. Now, if you look at 2 budget cycles ago, I believe the clerk said he was going to create a fund for situations like this. I don't know if that ever happened. Now, it wouldn't have been enough within 2 years. We know that. But this was kind of sprung upon people, so no one expected that.
Okay.
But let me share too. When it comes, I'm on the elections committee, and this is something that I talk about often, especially with Voter Choice Act counties. These statewide mandates are very hard for a lot of counties to actually implement. So before, when we used to have vote centers where people would go, anybody who lived within that precinct would go and they would find the ballot that actually matched their specific neighborhood. Now with VCA counties, they have to have every single ballot from every single municipality there on site, because if you go from Fowler to Fireball, they need to make sure that your address in Fowler and whoever you can vote for has to be also held at a location in Fireball. So a lot of this chaos that I talked about is because of the changes that actually come from the state. I understand the position from the Board of Supervisors, especially when it comes to funding a lot of these unfunded state mandates that are changing the way that we have rules in place. A lot of that comes directly from the Capitol. And I say that as an individual in that building, we've got to go all the way to the top.
Okay. All right, we're going to wrap this segment up unless there's any other final comments. And I know David has to leave us, but you're welcome to stay on because we're going to talk about actually SADA, Southeast Development Area, East Fresno, south of Clovis. Is that in your district or not? I'm not sure. Like,
It there's like a little bit of line. It really depends. I
Okay.
know it cuts around that portion.
Okay. Got it. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, David. You're welcome to stay on, but we're going to switch over and bring Ms. Patience Milrod back. Welcome back, Patience, to Unfiltered. We talked about this last Tuesday, but you actually had a press conference. A bunch of folks attended it, including some of the labor folks. One of the comments that has kind of been stirred around is the comment from Dylan Savory. He said people don't want to live in $500,000 or $600,000 homes on the fringe. They want to live in mid-rise or condos in the inner city.
Well,
So
that's not exactly what he said, but I mean,
okay.
so it was pretty cool. I've talked to a bunch of journalists who said, I can't remember the last time I saw 75, 100 people at a press conference in front of City Hall. And I think it's really important to point out that these were folks from every city council district in the city. There were unions, there were churches, there were neighborhood economic development corporations, there were, clubs. It was, a whole cross section of folks who were essentially saying to the city, would you please be responsible with our dollars? And I think that's going to be, that's going to be the test for this project. As a city, it's a real challenge. And Mike, I don't envy your job. It's a hard job because the city pretends that it makes the plan, right? But the city doesn't start out, the city starts out like, okay, we need this here, we need that there. We're gonna make a plan. Okay, great. Then next Thursday, Joe Blow, developer, shows up and says, oh, but wait a minute, I have inventory over here that I want to do this with, but that's not what your plan says. So then the city council is in this place where they make the plan, but they have to rely on private business to make the plan a reality. So they're caught in this, it's a really tricky place to be able to say, no, actually, we need X, and I'm sorry, Mr. or Ms. Developer, I'm sorry about your inventory. I'm sorry that's where you've got your property, but what you want to do there, that's not what the city needs. Those are the legislators we need who are able and willing to say, Darius, as much as I love you, they need to tell you no way more often than they do.
Hey, right now they're telling me no. You have to pay a higher tax, even though the math is wrong, and we're not going to let you use all the options that the state. This is on vehicle mile travel tax, but we're going to get
Oh my God,
but
what a mess.
that's a mess. Actually, you know what? I'm going to talk to you after the show briefly, but let's go back to Seda. I think we have a video of you. Let's play that video. It was like you said, it was a great turnout. GB Ward did a great coverage. I think we have a brief. I don't know how long the video is. Maybe 30 or 60 seconds. We can play that. Mike, you had a comment before that we play the video.
I just want to say, no, Patience makes a really good point. Look, there are some legitimate concerns. We have to show how this will pencil out. We have to show how we're not going to burden the general taxpayers with this new development. Now, I don't believe if we do this properly, we will be doing that. However, there's a lot we have to do. I think the one thing that really kind of perturbed me from the press conference is not by Patience, but some of the folks that were speaking, one in particular. This is the most labor-friendly council we've had in the history of this city. I was proud to be one of the council members that overturned the veto to uphold the PLA. But this idea that it's a false choice, it's either or. We need to build in the urban core. We need to build in the west side. We need to build southeast. We got to do it responsibly, but that's kind of what I worry about. Go ahead, Patience. Sorry.
Thanks. This idea of a false choice, we're not proposing a false choice.
I don't think you're doing that.
So hold on. What we're proposing is that the determination about can we afford SEDA, that question needs to be answered not just in the context of we're going to build these houses and provide for industrial development, whatever, over in this annexation area, and it's going to bring in a certain amount of revenue, and we're going to have to spend X in order to make this area work as part of the city. That is not the formula we are asking you to use. We are asking you to say, if we buy this expensive car, are we also going to be able to pay our rent? So not just can we buy the car, can we afford the gas? Will we, can we make the car payments? But
Right.
can we make the car payments? Can we pay for SATA and also repair my streets? And also
Fair enough.
sidewalks.
So let me
What I will add,
let, let
there's
me.
one point
Oh,
I
go
want
ahead.
to
Go
add.
ahead, Mike.
One thing that we did, along with myself, council members Maxwell and Perea, when negotiating with the county, we did something really historic. We negotiated a new tax sharing agreement that took the ratio from 38 to
Right.
62 to
That doesn't
50-50 in
solve the
SATA.
problem. That
But hold on.
doesn't solve the
It's
problem.
it's a
It-
significant step to show you that the council, which is the land policy authority in the city, is very
Right.
serious about making sure we can answer your question.
Why did we take
That was a
patience
huge.
off the screen? Hold on a second. Where did patience
Hold
go?
on.
Okay.
What?
That was
no.
one big step. Again, this is not you, patients. You're very reasonable to work with. I'm talking about some of the other folks. Don't acknowledge any of that. We are taking those steps. I think what we would like is there's been historic frustrations with the city. The irony is that one of the people trying to kill SATA is the person who came up with it, Mr. Berthold. But we get there's frustration with the city. But we're saying if we want to negotiate in good faith, let's answer your questions. But when comments are made that we're not labor friendly, that the council doesn't care, my colleagues take that very seriously.
Well, don't take it personally. You can't afford it.
Seriously, not
Don't
personally.
you have
Seriously.
a thin skin.
No,
Okay, let me
Seri-
let's
but yeah,
let's
okay.
let's play the video. Let's play we have a
Okay.
1 minute video. Let's play that real quick, and then we'll
Yeah.
continue this discussion for about maybe 7 to 10 more minutes, and then we're going to bring in Leon Orndorff, retired Marine Corps veteran. We're going to talk about the veterans' home and why that was built, funded mainly by State of California, and who visits that place, and why we need a veterans hall. Okay, let's play the video.
The City Council is going to hear a workshop on SATA, which is the Southeast Development Area, 9,000 acres, basically a new Clovis, to be annexed into the city of Fresno, with all the attendant expense of providing public services to all those hundreds of thousands of people who are going to be living in an area that at this point does not have any infrastructure.
People want to live in the city of Fresno, in the inner city. Folks do not need $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes out on the outskirts of town near the farmland, running over folks that live in rural communities now.
We've listened to folks express concerns, and we've taken a lot of what they've said and actually have taken action on that. One of the concerns was it doesn't pay for itself. So we negotiated a historic tax sharing agreement with the county that actually in an unprecedented fashion incentivized development in this area. It's very, very sad that people can't look beyond the past. And the problem with that is, in the past, previous administrations, long time ago, decisions were made that were very anti-growth. The result has been growth and jobs have gone to other communities, and you have leapfrog development, which is detrimental to our environment. We talked about vehicle miles traveled today. Well, when people drive to Madera, which is a great county, and they go and sleep in Madera, but they work here and use our services, we are paying for that, but their taxes go to another county. And I think that's the worst thing.
Quick comment, and then we're going to go to
So from the
Bill.
clips we saw, Patience was correct in what she said entirely. We have to show how this will pay for itself and not burden. That's a fair point. We've got a lot of work to do there. I think we've taken steps towards that. We're not there yet with the confidence level. What the other speakers said about people wanting to live in the inner city, I can tell you that's not true. Some do, and they should have that option. We talked about voting earlier and having options. But to say people don't want look, people would love to have homes that are $300,000. We live in California. That won't happen. But if you increase supply and give them options, that pays for itself and doesn't burden the city. Supply will help. And like I mentioned, people that drive to Madera, that is the worst thing for us financially and for our environment. So our inaction and doing nothing and not creating enough land ready for growth has resulted in a loss of wealth, a loss of jobs, a loss of income, loss of resources, and dirty air. I'll leave it at that.
I'm gonna, before we bring in Bill, I'm gonna make a comment. As a home builder that builds in multiple parts of the city, I can tell you, folks want a nice home with a backyard, so they can a nice covered patio, so they can have a barbecue, access to parks, access to schools close by, ideally walkable to small, whether it's a small store, bakery, ice cream shop. It's kind of stuff that we're actually building. The Granville is building, and now it happens to be the inner city. Well, maybe it's not so much inner city, but like Fowler and Shields area, all walkable, series of trails and parks. But people, we build in downtown Fresno, and I can tell you, as soon as folks get married or want to have kids or have kids that want to go to school, they move out, and their number one destination is Clovis Unified. I don't make the rules. We just react. For to be successful, you have to provide the housing that your customers demand. And I think it's important to have the customer at the table. Unfortunately, the home buyer of next year and the year after is not at the table. They're not really represented except by what developers and home builders will communicate to policymakers on their behalf based on current homeowner demand. Let me bring Bill in, and we're going to switch over. I'm going to go back to patients, and then we're going to bring in Leon. Bill McEwen.
Well, I get frustrated by people that make great pronouncements about history, Fresno's planning history and growth history and those kinds of things. And if you look back at the general plan passed by Mayor Swearingen, one of the biggest premises was that outside investment would come to Fresno and would address these infrastructure problems. And we would have all this building downtown in the inner city. And so I hear people say, well, local developers won't build here or there. They can't afford to. There's not a market for it. The expense is too high. The consumer will not react to it. But the premise was that outside capital would fix this infrastructure problem and help rebuild the inner city. And we were even told the names of some of the banks that were going to be doing this. And you know what? It was all baloney. There was no commitment from any of those people. And I think that's been the biggest failure of this general plan, which on paper looked really good. And if in fact the infrastructure issues were addressed, local developers would be building there as well. I can't speak for Darius, but I know how capitalism works. And so there's a giant hole in this old general plan. And the people in Madera County really exploited it because we stopped or we slowed down really residential construction, whether it was multifamily or single family. With this kind of unofficial moratorium, we made it so onerous, and people went over to Madera County, and we found out that
Hold on.
consumers don't really care about the street or the boundary.
Okay,
they know what they want.
Good points, but okay, I'm going to switch topics for a minute because Mike and Patience both have to drop off. I'm going to bring in what happened with the largest tax hike in development history. Mike, can you give us a brief update on what happened on Thursday regarding vehicle miles traveled?
I'll do my best to be as objective as possible here because I was one of the two that voted against the policy. So many years ago, there was a Senate bill that was passed by Sacramento in order to really reduce emissions, and that was called a vehicle miles traveled policy, SB 743, I believe. And the whole purpose of that was to reduce car trips. But if you're going to produce car trips, let's say going to Southwest Fresno, away from the city for a new development, there'd be a fee you'd pay, and that fee would go to pay for projects throughout the city to help reduce VMT. Well, a lot's changed since then. 1 in 4 cars in California are electric. A lot of standards have changed and things have changed in the state. But we are implementing a local policy because the state has no policy yet. They're working on that. That hasn't happened yet. So the problem is we didn't have really a public workshop. We had a council meeting that was a hearing. We held that, brought it to another hearing that we just had last week. A lot of questions, new questions were raised, kind of put our city attorneys into a tough spot because they give us good information, but on the fly, these are very dense topics. And to me, it seemed like the council just wanted to move forward and get this passed because it looks like a lot of the home developers said, you know what, we need this to build our homes. Let's pass it. And the fee that could be up to $12,000 a home gets passed on to the consumer. So they really don't care one way or the other. What we couldn't get answers on are, for example, if you build a project in the spirit of that law that completely eliminates what's called VMT, then why would you pay that tax? Why would the new homeowner pay that tax? These are questions we couldn't get answers to. Why were some projects not exempt from the tax when they have less than the minimum VMT? I'm sorry, it's very technical and dense. I didn't do a very good job of being providing enough detail on that. But basically, in a nutshell, this is a fee you've never paid before. But if you want to buy a new home in Fresno, based on this fuzzy map we put together and this policy that's not well thought out, in my opinion, you could be paying thousands of dollars more for that home, which is a barrier to home ownership.
That's a great point, Mike. My biggest issue with this rollout was there was no rollout. They announced a fee after 4 years of doing their studies, internal studies, looking at consultants. Nothing was shared with the public, with home builders, with the commercial developers, with the public at large. So you get a chance to actually opine. What was the workshop to say? Here's what it looks like. Here's the math. The fee is going to be between call it $5,000 and $15,000 a home. Here's how we arrived at the math. The money is going to be used to do these things. And by the way, that's another problem I've got with it. Most of the projects that the city wants to fund, at least in my opinion, are already funded by other measures. Whether they didn't calculate that and those projects were not funded 3 or 4 years ago, and they are now. And also $5.5 million is to hire staff, do marketing plans, get signage for people to take the bus, so on and so forth. And another issue I've got is one of the projects is adding more buses to and on East Church Avenue, east to west. No issues with adding more buses, but I asked the city, what is your current bus in this route, which is already funded? What is the ridership? And why do you want to increase it? If you can show that the ridership is really full, we need more buses because people want to take the bus, that's great. But then,
Another problem,
no,
Darius,
we cannot share that with you.
Right.
We cannot share that with you. Submit a PRA. I mean, so much is in secrecy, and that's my issue with this project.
but also for the council. The
Ours
council had
too.
limited to no input on that list.
Say that again, Mike.
The council had limited to no input on that list. That list was given to us. We didn't get to say, these are our priorities. When you put this list together, these are what our constituents are telling us. We didn't have any say in that. That was another issue of the first hearing of consternation. No public input, but also no policymaker input either.
This is how you know what? And I asked the mayor, is this just a money grab? It's a $20 million 5-year money grab, because can you show us actually how this will reduce vehicle miles traveled? And why are you not giving optionality, which the new state law, David left, he voted for it, AB 130, I believe he voted for it, gives specifically outlines optionality. And I quoted that at the dais, and I sent that to all the council members and the mayor. The law asks for optionality. The law this new state law wants us to use land use as a tool to mitigate and lower travel times. And the city of Fresno says, sorry, we're not going to let you do that. Sorry, once the fee goes through, which it did last Thursday, you got to pay it. You cannot do your own analysis. You cannot use land use as a tool. Your customers are going to pay a much higher price and get no value in return. When you pay a park fee, there's going to be a park built someplace in town that you're going to go and enjoy and benefit from. Water hookup fees, school fees, all of those. And now I'm getting too much detail, but it's I'm very not aggravated, but really disappointed at the 4 members of the city council. Mike, I know you got to go, but please.
Let me give you a quick example of about a year ago. So there is a health clinic that's being built in Pinedale. This is a very, very big deal for that community. Pinedale is at the corner of Herndon and Blackstone. There is a map, a VMT map that's created that you've seen. It's green, red, and yellow. Green means low VMT, so you're not going to create a lot, no fee. Yellow and red, fee gets higher. That clinic that's serving the neighborhood right next to the school on Herndon and Blackstone, accessible to mass transit. And remember, with this clinic, people are going to walk there. It was red. That held up this thing for so long. That's an example of how the current system is flawed. Now, behind the scenes, we're able to get this all sorted out. so this clinic can finally break ground. That's just one clinic in Northwest Fresno. Imagine you're trying to do something like that in another part of town. It's just these kind of questions should be answered before we ask policy. It's no wonder why folks like patients get skeptical. I understand because when we pass these things through, and this is a good example, patients, where I didn't listen to developers. They wanted us to pass it, just no question, just pass it. I didn't fall for that.
Well,
So
part
there's
of the
one
reason they
example.
wanted you to pass it was because $12,000 is way less than most municipalities are charging for VMT fees. So it's
But they
like,
don't pay for it.
this on the books
We
before
pay for it.
anybody thinks
Yeah.
about charging us more. And, the theory is that VMT is an incentive to build and it much easier to do in places that are more densely built already. But when you start with a project that's way out on the fringes, you are already deep into VMT problems. So if you choose, there are tens of thousands of sites within the city of Fresno already accessible to transit, already with amenities, already zoned. And if you choose to build in that kind of location, then your VMT is automatically less. And that's something that developers tend to not do in the city of Fresno.
Patience, I would agree with you. However, it has to be a place where home buyers want to live as well. So if those tens of thousands of sites, which I don't know, by the way, where they're at, if there were in locations where people go, I want to live there. I want my kid to go to the nearby school, and I want to shop in the nearby stores. Uh, if that was the case, we would be all over building there. I mean, we've built in every part of this city. The only place I haven't built in is in Southwest Fresno, and I can tell you, they're more difficult to build. By the way, downtown Fresno development was the most complicated, most treacherous, most costly place for us to develop. Lack of infrastructure, uh, lack of support from a city that really wanted downtown development, but projects took a long time. We had to build up so much of the infrastructure, including flood control.
Hey, they gave you a park. They gave you a park, which then you got credit for being open space for your.
No, we didn't.
Yes,
No. Let me tell you, we actually,
$100,000 out of the housing fund. They just emptied it into into your bottom line. So I think they've been really nice to you.
you know what? I'm going to disagree because, by the way, the park, I went to the city and said, why don't you guys, our tenants are, we built high density, low parking ratio. We need more amenities. There is no amenities here. People want to park. Why don't you go get some state money, state funds, which they applied for? We actually sponsored a lot of the charrettes to actually go design a park smack in the middle of that area. And they did it, yeah. They used all state dollars to build it. Well, by the way, we had to argue the 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 tools, the amenities that the buyers wanted, got our customers or the people living in the area and the charrettes wanted, majority got eliminated, including a basketball court. I'm gonna go to Bill, and then we're done with this part of the conversation. I know Mike has got to drop off. Patience, if you can stay on for Marine Corps.
Oh, and then I'll need to drop off. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
It's a pleasure, gentlemen.
Thank you being on board. Bill?
So, I mean, this is an extremely complicated topic, and you have all these tensions coming in a million different directions. And you talk about people want to live in the inner city. I believe the labor leader said that. I doubt he has children because people have voted with their feet to flee Fresno Unified for 30 years. And so when you look at Fresno society, I don't care what race you are, when you move into the middle class, you save a little bit of money. You take your kids and your family to Clovis Unified. Now, a majority of Clovis Unified students live in the city of Fresno. What does that say? So when you're talking about the barriers to rebuilding the urban core in Fresno, and you can talk VMT and AB 130 and this and that and general plans and developers are bad and activists are good. They ignore the elephant in the room. the number one barrier, besides the infrastructure question, is Fresno Unified School District.
Totally.
And anyone
Totally.
who says, no way, they're just fooling themselves. And I'll tell you who does stay in Fresno Unified. If you have a kid in a family and the kid is really supported and the kid is ambitious and super bright, because Fresno Unified provides all kinds of support and carrots and sweeteners for the absolutely ambitious, supported student. I would say the way they educate that student is far superior than Clovis Unified. And yet, when you look at the makeup of Fresno Unified's population, is that Fresno Unified's greatest need to support a student that would succeed anywhere in America? No. But Fresno Unified has used those students as their banner to say how great we are when all the other metrics say nothing but complete failure. And I'll end it with that.
Bill, you make great points, and I know Mike has heard me say that. I want patience to hear me, and Lonnie. We don't build in Fresno Unified a product for sale. Again, we follow the customers. Customers go, we want to be in Clovis Unified, we want to be in Northwest Fresno, Northeast Fresno, and North Clovis, or East Clovis. But we want access to great schools. Central Unified is coming up aggressively, they're doing beautiful things, building great campuses. Kids want that. Parents want their kids to go to gorgeous new facilities, like the Terry Bradley Center that just opened up. We don't developers by and large, and I'm not trying to protect the development community, but they respond to market conditions. Bill is correct. School districts are a big reason why people move. And people want their kids to go to Clovis Unified, and then it's Central, maybe Sanger, for sure not Fresno Unified. And the activist community should really be all over Fresno Unified, from the superintendent to the board. Outside of one board member, who happens to be, Susan Wittrup, that is driving this message aggressively, and happens to be my friend, driving this message aggressively for change. But bureaucracies don't want to change themselves. They had 3 fantastic candidates for superintendent, exceptionally qualified. One was the superintendent of the year, but the board, on a 6-1 vote, and I get it, bureaucracies, when you bring an outside person, they're going to probably change the executive team. The board of trustees will not have the influence on that person as much. I get all that. There's lots of stuff that happens in relationship building and influence. I'll help you, you're going to help me. But at the end of the day, 90% of black students cannot read or do math at grade. Hispanics are right behind that. If we accept that as a community, shame on us. And we keep on getting the same team of folks moving up the ladder to become superintendent, same board members, get reelected, because people by and large don't want to be on a school board. It's not sexy enough. Some people use it as a stepping stool to get into their next office, city council, or whatever it may be. But that's the issue. And if we don't fix, Susan Wittrup told me this. She said, if you care about our community, all you assholes in the business community, you care about our community, you should care about K through 12 education, because that's where it's at. If you don't have folks that can read or write, that can't get a job, they're going to have to go steal, break into your house, break into your business. And my family has spent a lot of money on higher education in our community, but K through 12 is really where it's at. And we do a really poor job in not holding people accountable at Fresno Unified. I'm really excited that GV Wire, for all those folks that read GV Wire, we cover the heck out of Fresno Unified and all the school districts. And we do a pretty darn good job exposing this stuff and bringing light to items that need to be addressed. The root cause of so many challenges in our community is lack of proper education. I'm gonna get to Mike and then Lonnie.
Okay, say 2 things real quick.
And then Leon,
number
by
one,
the way. Leon, we haven't forgotten about you.
Leon's patience is a virtue for Leon.
Okay.
Real quick, I just want to say, I talked earlier about elections and how it's an under the radar issue. It's fundamentally important. And, Bill's talking about the elephant in the room. And we don't talk enough about, like, I'm a product of Fresno Unified, but it has changed so much since I was a kid there in the 90s. It's amazing how it's changed. And we will never get anywhere in this community. We will never get anywhere if we're robbing the next generation of real opportunity. I think this whole VMT issue and SATA issue and all this we're talking about, it's really a nationwide issue. And this is why I take it so seriously. As a country, we have really disappointed the next generation. We've robbed them of opportunity. People can't afford to survive. They're getting educated, but they can't find the opportunity they need. They can't afford housing. They can't afford to eat. They're moving back home with their parents. And this is frustrating for them. They no longer trust anyone, if it's red or blue. They just don't trust us anymore. So this is happening in our hometown in Fresno, and it's happening at that level. I'm not trying to blame anyone in particular, but the system just isn't working. This is what we should be focusing on, not fighting about, those homes. We need to fight about how we're going to help those kids get the jobs so they can afford those homes, no matter
Exactly,
where
Mike.
they are.
Exactly. And this is where, again, the opportunities are missed. And I've shared this with our mayor and with our superintendent. Uh, when the city wants to roll out a program like this high tax, the vehicle mile travel tax, it should be done in collaboration with home builders, commercial developers, with school districts, with all other public entities that we should be working together to figure out if there's a tax on the new home buyer and the new shopping center developer, what is the best use of that tax that makes our city a better place to live, work, and play. Not to just check a box and say, this special activist group or social justice group wants this program. They want you to van pool or carpool. People will behave. We can't change people's behavior. If they can't get it what they want in Fresno, they're going to move to another city or another state. Let's figure out with the limited resources we have, how do we make this city work together? Government, private sector, the nonprofit sector come together to figure out what is the best, how do we comply with state law while making sure that we have the best use, put the tax dollars to the best use so that this place becomes a better place to live, work, and play. Let me go to Lonnie. Mike, go
Last
ahead
thing
and then
before I
Lonnie.
go, just
Yeah.
happy Veterans Day, everyone. That's it. Gotta hope.
Public school teacher of 37 years. I've taught some unified public schools. I agree 100%. I think education is the magic bullet. It takes care of poverty. It takes care of crime, all these issues that we're talking about. But I think there's one other thing, and I think it's for a different show. But one of the things we really need to talk about is the issue of accountability in schools. I think that is the key deal. And I'm not talking just accountability for teachers. I'm not talking just accountability for kids. I'm not talking just accountability for parents. I'm talking about accountability for school boards, administrators, etc. We all need to sit down and we need to rethink education in the 21st century in a totally different way.
Lonnie,
I'm
it's
getting
not
near
going to happen.
retirement.
Lonnie,
I'm getting near
it's not
retirement.
going to
I'm
happen.
telling you, that's what I have learned in my career. We need to bring in the big A. We need to bring in accountability across the board.
Lonnie, here's what the issue is this. You know how many people I've talked to about Fresno Unified School Board? People don't care. This is a great idea. We want more accountability, but bottom line, people don't care about who their school board trustee is. It's not sexy enough. And so many parents have so many other challenges in their life. They go, I guess my kid just can't learn how to read. I guess Susan's number one issue is literacy. If you can't read, nothing else matters. Why hasn't Fresno Unified for decades made that their number one focus and rolled out programs for that? GBY is holding them accountable. And I am all over that. But I can tell you, majority of the folks that I talk to from social justice groups, enviro groups, business groups, attorneys, they don't care.
Because
They
I'll
don't
answer
care.
I'll answer this question. The problem that I see so often happens is that the board is running administration is running the board. Instead of the board dictating to the administration what should happen. The board is there to represent the interests of the people, the parents, the taxpayers, etc. And what I see often happen is administrators and maybe some teachers involved, the administrators are telling the board, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. And the board's just rubber stamping. And that's these boards all around. They
We're
need to
gonna
understand that they represent the taxpayer, they represent the people, they represent the parents, and that
before
needs to shift.
we're gonna change that, but we're gonna bring Leon on before we wrap up. Leon Orndorff, thank
Please
you.
continue. You
No,
guys sound like you're having a good time.
no, we're not. This issue is we're gonna bring. Thank you for your patience, Leon.
Oh
This is
no,
gonna.
sure.
It's a complex issue. Tell us
Oh
about
no.
veterans. Tell us about the Veterans Hall, uh, and tell us about your experiences as a veteran and why we need to spend more resources for our veterans here in the Valley.
Well, starting that one up, as far as veterans go, it's always a process a lot of times. A lot of times we have what's called service and sacrifice. People who served in the U.S. Armed Forces give up their time, safety, sometimes their health, and in many cases, life-altering experiences. Providing quality and care, housing, health, and support is one of the tangible ways society honors that commitment. You know, a lot of times veterans have very unique needs. We're a little off, and I like joking about that a little bit. But whether it's physical injuries or mental injuries, traumatic brain injuries, anything else like that, it's not something we get to kind of bond on an average Joe with. So having these communities where there's other veterans there really helps out a lot.
Awesome. Do you know much about the veterans? Have you been into the Veterans Hall in Southwest Fresno? And let's put a couple of images up on there. There it is.
I have not
Okay,
on
and
that
that's
one.
mainly for veterans that need shelter and care.
Mhm.
Mainly funded by there it is, Fresno Veterans Home.
There you go.
Opened in 2013 and offers there it is several levels of care that provide again care for our veterans. Um,
Yeah, they also have something set up at the VA too as well for veteran housing, and I hear it does very well too. It's a great little community there as well.
yeah. Any final messages on veterans? I know Bill has got a couple of comments. Bill has got a question for you. Bill?
Oh, perfect.
The federal government actually paid 65% of the construction costs for the Fresno Veterans Home. Jim Costa was very involved in that. And I don't think we can talk about this without saluting the late Charlie Waters, who was a World War II hero, a real hero. And he constantly was the #1 advocate in Fresno and one of the leading advocates in the nation for veterans. And I mean, he went toe to toe with Jerry Brown when Jerry Brown said, we have a tough budget. We can't honor our funding commitment to actually open up the Fresno Veterans Home. He embarrassed Jerry Brown. And Costa got the feds to kick up that money up front, and Sacramento caved in. So we owe a lot to Charlie Waters. A lot of people knew about him because of the great Veterans Day parade. And then the final thing I want to add is recently an independent rating service judged the Fresno VA hospital to be one of the best in the nation. And there was a time when that wasn't true. And when we say best in the nation, that doesn't mean they're perfect, but certainly they've made strides. And Leon's reacting to that. Maybe he has a different take.
Yeah, I do. I deal with them quite a bit. The VA system is not the greatest one, and congratulations, we did strides on that one. It's still a monster. I'm pretty sure at the local Fresno VA, they have a picture of me hanging there saying flaming hemorrhoid of the month. Because unless you go in there and actually treat that place like a tool, you can't have any humanity with them. You have to sit, yell, and demand to get your way in there, which is horrible. Because if you don't, and your appointment's at 10 o'clock, you probably won't be seen till 3. If you're not getting results, you have to sit and continually berate the VA to get anything done with them. It's a horrible process, and it's not a pleasant process at all. So saying we've had strides in it, that's great, but we can do better. We can do a lot better there.
And what I would go back to is, the cost of war. And all the time we get these big cost projections from Congress or somebody in the presidential administration. And they never include the cost of future care for veterans that serve in these wars. And to me, it's bad accounting, it's inhumane. And while we have parades, while we say thank you for your service, my dad was career military. I know about the lifestyle and everything that happens. Um, we don't really, do we really mean it? Because if we did, we would have better psychological care, we would have better job training, we would have close relationships with our veterans as they leave the military and they make that transition into civilian life. And so to me, so many of our politicians are phonies because they'll show up for parades, they'll make speeches, but they don't vote the funding.
Agreed. Most of the veterans.
Let me make a couple of comments because some of it is questions for Leon. Happy Veterans Day from Becky Wharton. Linda Cotta
Thank
says
you.
there is an organization in Clovis called Beyond the Barracks. It's a nonprofit
Yes.
and it is veterans supporting veterans, sometimes free breakfast and activities and counseling for veterans. They're having a family snow day next weekend. They have many fundraising event. You do not have to be from Clovis to participate. Sounds like a great organization, Linda. That's from Becky. Let me a couple of more comments. Cam Malloy, Boys and Girls Club of Fresno County, the big brothers and big sisters are really important too. That sounds like on the education side. Robert Wharton, where does Patience live? Is she interested in buying an overtaxed home in an area she doesn't want to be in? Linda Cotta, Doris, you should start a petition to recall the entire Fresno Unified Board. Probably except Susan. If the government people had to use their own money, they would have a different attitude. Robert Wharton. Um, Linda Carter, people have been moving to be in Clovis Unified since 1977. We moved here from Monterey, and everyone was buying in Clovis Unified because they were going to bus junior high students to Edison to integrate schools in Fresno Unified. Fresno side of Chestnut Avenue had brand new Hallmark homes with a waiting list of more than a year until the mandate came out on the south side of Chestnut. We bought for $5,000 more. Okay, going back to, I'm sorry, Lonnie's got a comment, and then we're going to wrap up with Leon.
Well, I would just say, wouldn't it be a wonderful world if the veterans hospitals were the jewel of our healthcare community? That, that's where all the great research was happening. That's where we really focus the service. And I just think that's what we really need to do. And I like Bill's comment about we need to factor this in when we make a decision that we're going to go into a war. We have to figure out what's going to happen what's going to happen after this ends, and how are we going to take care of these folks who put it on the line for us, because freedom's not free, and people need to understand. I've taught government all these years and tried to get this conveyed to these kids. My uncle was in Korea. We need to keep our promise to our veterans.
Lonnie, part of the challenge before Leon comes on, there's a lot of money in war, and now it's without humans. It's drones, whether it's a submarine drone. Airplane drone, tank drone, but there's a lot of money to be made in endless wars. I go back to what Charlie Kirk said in the last 6 months before he was assassinated. Leon, you get the last word.
Yeah, so kind of ending that one of, all the veterans that go out, they deploy, even if they don't, they're still writing a check at any cost. All the veterans put their life on the line for the country. It's only right when they come home, they get support first. I will say, backing off with, backing Bill on that, where there has been some strides, for instance, community care, which is a big one. The sad part is that a lot of veterans don't know about that, and they just take their lumps at the VA. So, but happy Veterans Day and thumbs up.
What do you think about Beyond the Barracks? You were making a few
Yes.
comments on.
I've actually got to talk to them a couple times. It's a great program. There's a lot of programs that other veterans have stepped up starting these programs to help other veterans. It's just kind of hard for, one, getting the name out there, and two, a lot of veterans are grouchy. Having them actually go to it, where some of them you do have to drag in there and get them to some of those events.
Got it.
But they do have a wonderful program.
Thank you, Leon, for joining us. Thank you,
Thank you.
Lonnie. Thank you, Bill. Any final comments by anybody?
Well,
Okay.
we need to talk about Prop 50, the results, the election results some more, I think.
Okay.
What's the impact of all that?
Well, maybe you come back and a couple of weeks after all the dust is settled, every vote has been counted, and tell us how will that impact for at least Fresno, Clovis, and other cities in the county.
And
Okay.
Darius, there was a comment about speculating on where Patience lives, and she's a longtime resident of the Tower District.
Got it. Okay. No other comments. Thank you, gents. Have a great week. We're gonna have a wet Thursday, but see you all next Tuesday. Take care.